Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you, as usual, for joining the Platform Analytics Academy session that we have going on today. Hopefully, it'll be some really good information for you, maybe something new to you, maybe something that you've done in the past, or maybe just some tips and tricks or whatnot that you can get from the content that we're going over today. Again, as usual, this is always for you, and we want to make sure that we can bring you fresh ideas and better understanding and practical guidance and things of that nature to you to help you along your journey and, being able to do more inside of platform analytics. This is going to be recorded or is being recorded, and it will be out in the community later on this afternoon, this evening. It'll also be out on our YouTube channel as well later on this afternoon and this evening as well. Please feel free to ask questions if you can. Please use the Q&A box. I do have other panelists that are on that will be monitoring the questions. And some of those questions will most likely be answered in the type form if they can happen while I'm presenting. And then if there is something that is relevant to where we are with the content, the panelists may stop me and we ask that question then. So again, just make sure that you're using the Q&A. If you can refrain from using the chat for questions. I mean, obviously, if you need to chat to someone else in the meeting, you're more than welcome to do that. But for questions, let's just try to put those in the Q&A. And so safe harbor notice, again, there always could possibly be information that is shared that is forward-looking statements. So please don't make any buying decisions on anything that we discuss today. I just want to make sure that we put that out there. So again, my name is Thomas Davis, and I am a host and actually presenter, not panelist. And I also have on Ritika, and she is a panelist as well, but also a guru as it relates to CMDB. So we have her on, which is very exciting. And I know that she'll have a lot of information to share as it relates to questions and things of that nature. I also have on Tara, who is here now. I know that Adam is on his way as well, but thank you, Tara, for being here. And Tara and Adam will also be panelists, and they will monitor the Q&A as well. So with that, let's kind of get into what we're talking about today. So this is a session that we visited a couple years ago. Was our very first session on the CMDB Query Builder, and we thought that it was really good to talk about it again, and then also show it with the Inline dashboard, which is really great. The way that this is working now, very simplistic in my mind, the way that the two of these work together. So that's our thought today. We're just going to go over a couple of queries, and we may be able to get to another one if time is permitting that we'll do perhaps live to kind of show you a little bit more of its power. But again, we just wanted to show some queries and how to build those out and also make those work with the Inline dashboard. So just some information about the CMDB Query Builder if you're someone that happens to be not familiar with it. So the CMDB Query Builder is something that really allows you to easily build complex infrastructure and service queries that aren't that easy, obviously, to get to in the general sense of building a report or an indicator or something like that. Being able to do it right inside the CMDB Query Builder and the things that you can access. So CMDB classes and also non-CMDB classes, information like that is really nice, and it's a canvas, so it's a drag and drop type thing, and you hook some things up, and you'll see that here in a minute. But there's a couple ways that you can actually build out queries. There's a CMDB query, and then there's also a service mapping query. So for what we'll do today, we're just going to look at a couple of CMDB queries. I think we might actually plan another session where we get into service mapping queries a little bit deeper. But for today, we're just going to look at some CMDB queries. And again, it's just a canvas that allows you to drag and drop and get access to some things that, again, you can't very easily do within a report, or if you were building out an indicator source or something like that. So you can also do a combination query where you can actually take the CMDB query along with a service mapping query and bring those together and do some even more fancier type things. So do them individually, and also you can do them together. So there are relationship properties that really make it's so much easier when you're actually in the canvas and you're doing certain things. And this is just basically the way that the information that you're looking at ties together, right? So when you think about relationships, it's like, okay, so when I drag this particular class out, how does it tie together with another class or even a non-CMDB class? And what the relationships do is they give you the ability to look at first level, maybe second level, maybe it's a class where there's a parent and there's a child relationship. So it gives you the ability, and you'll see that here in a moment, the ability to assign those relationships the way that you want them to work based on your knowledge of the data itself. So yes, you would have to know a little bit about the way that the relationship works. If it's a parent-child, if it's a first or a second level, things of that nature. But knowing that information, when you get into the canvas, you can actually set that property to be whatever you know that it's going to be. And again, we'll look at those relationship properties here in a little bit when we actually create something. So the great thing about this that I find the most easiest about all of this is the idea of just dragging and dropping information onto a canvas. So you're going to be able to see here in a minute where you can see all the different classes, and we can click on one and we can just grab it and we can drag it over to the canvas, and then we can grab another CMDB class or a non-CMDB class and drag those out, and then actually tying those together, hooking those together. But all of it is, again, the whole idea of the drag and drop really makes it very powerful. And again, we'll walk through that step by step, and you'll actually see that here in a second. So how do you actually get to the CMDB Query Builder? So if you go to Navigate All under Configuration, you'll find the CMDB Query Builder, and simple enough, you just click Open. I don't know why I have that. There we go. So here's our first example of building something. So I'm going to go to the CMDB Query Builder. I'm going to open it up, and I've decided that I want to look at any servers that has a database connection. So I'm going to click Create New, and I'm just going to go ahead and name it. You can name this whatever you want. I've decided that I'm just going to name this All Servers with a Connection to a Database. And you can name it, like I said, whatever. And I'm going to choose CMDB Query. And here's where we get to drag and drop. So inside of my classes, I'm going to look for server. And once I find that, I just grab it and I drag it over. And then I also want to look for database. So I'm going to, in the same place, I'm going to search for database. I'm going to grab that and I'm going to drag that over as well. And now I'm going to hook the two of them up together. So you click, when you're on one, you actually click on the little box there and you click on the other one. And now you can see that I have a line with the red asterisk. That asterisk means that the connection isn't finished. So I had to actually, and let me just stop this here for a second and go back so you can actually see that. You'll see that I have to actually select a relationship. So here, what do we do? How did we do that? Man, things are quirky today. I went way ahead, sorry. There we go. Let me move forward a little bit here and stop. There we go. All right, so here under Add Relationships Types, I'm going to select any relationship. So I don't really care the way that the two of them have a connection. Maybe they have a connection via a, yes, this presentation will be, it'll be in the YouTube. So you'll actually be able to see it right in YouTube. I saw the question come in. So we're going to select any relationship type because we don't really care if it's a parent-child, if it's connected via a CI. We just want to go out there and look for anywhere that there is a server that has a database on that. So we're going to go ahead and select any relationship. And once we do that, then now I'm going to select, I want to look for a couple columns that are important to me. So I'm going to click on server, and then I'm going to add columns. And here I want to see the manufacturer. I want to see just what the name of it is. It could be anything that you actually want to look at. And I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to click run. And now what it's doing is it's actually building out that query. And here you can see, if I pause it, here you can see that I found 6 servers that actually also have a database that is associated with it, or a database that's on that server as well. And I can actually see the manufacturers as well. And you can also kind of get some information here about the type. Now, these are just 4 columns. There's a lot of columns of information that you can grab to look at if this is something that you need to look at. But for just demo purposes, I quickly just wanted to show you that you can find servers that have a database attached to them, and that's what we have here. So the next thing that I want to do with that information that I've created is I want to use that in a dashboard. So what you can do is you can create a schedule, and then you can also create a report. So when you create a schedule, it's just like creating really any other schedule, and you'll see that here in a second. And basically, we can set it up where we want that information to always be relevant. So there's a couple different ways that you can do it. For the purpose of what we're going to do today, it's going to be on demand, but you can set it up daily. And basically that means is it's daily. It'll run this same query that we built inside of CMDB, and it will look for that same information. Now, one thing to always remember is that if you go back into the CMDB query builder and you find that particular query that you built and you change that in any sort of way, if you change a relationship, if you add another column, if you add another class, you could possibly drag another class out there that you want to connect up to it. Anytime that you make any changes, that you have to remember that you need to go in and create a new schedule, because that schedule that's being created is only for as good as what the data is when you create it. So if you enhance it, do anything, or you remove anything, you will definitely need to create a new schedule anytime that you do that. And then once you create the schedule, then it'll actually give you the ability to create a report off of it. And you can see that report directly in the report builder, and also some other fancier stuff, which we're going to go into now. So what I want to do is I've already ran it and saved it. I want to create the schedule. So here it's going to go to a schedule email query builder, and you can name this whatever you choose to name it. For this case, I'm just going to copy what I have for the query, and I'm going to name it. And like I said, for this demo, I'm just going to do on demand, but you could make this, you could set the schedule up anytime that you want. And then I'm just going to submit that. And once I do that, and then I'll go back to my query here. Once we get there, now that I've created that schedule and I've saved it and everything's working, I'll actually now be able to create a report with that information. Now you can see that create report is available for me to select it. So I'm going to click on it, and you'll notice that it's going to open it up directly in the old classic report builder UI. And if you look at the data, the name is there. Let me slow this down. So the name is what I actually named the query that I built in CMDB. And you can see for data sources that it automatically created a data source, report source, whatever you happen to call it. It automatically created it, and that is there available for me. Again, remembering that if you use this data source, you have to remember that if you decide to change the application or the query inside of CMDB Query Builder, you would have to make sure that you use the newest report source that's being generated as well. But here you can actually see directly inside of the report what's going on. So for this case, I'm going to make it a single score, because I just want to see the count of them. And once I do that, I don't need to do anything under configure or style or whatnot. And when I select run, now you can see that those same 6, they're there for me and it's available. Now that's just a standard report. Now you could save that report, and you could add that to a dashboard of your choice. You could put it in a responsive dashboard. You could put it, wherever you want to, or you could just have it as a report that you go to whenever you want to. But with the Inline dashboard and the great things that come with that, I want to put it inside of a dashboard. So I'm going to go to Platforms Analytics Workspace, and I already have a dashboard that is there available for me. And I'm going to add a new element, and I'm going to select a data visualization. And then I'm going to choose there we go. I'm going to choose a single score, but I'm going to go in and configure that. And once I'm there, like I said, I'm going to choose a single score. I'm going to go ahead and give it a name just so I'll know what it is. And there's a lot of great features inside of this, and you'll see down there at the bottom, I've given the link to an Academy session that we did that really went over these things in great detail. But here I'm going to add a data source, and I'm going to search for that same one that I created, and it's going to pop up there for me. So to me, that is really amazing that I can get to it directly now from the dashboard, and there it is right there. And I'm going to select it. And then there you can actually see the line by line. I'm going to add this data source. And now you can see that I have I'm going to go ahead and save it and exit editing mode. And you'll see that I have my single score with that particular number, which is 6. And also now I can click into those and look at those details the same way that I did inside of the CMDB query builder. So this is, there's a great question that came in that Dima asked, and how is this different from a database view? So Ratika, I'd love to hear your response on this, but I'll give my response on this. So obviously, if you need to create a database view, and in theory, this is basically doing the same thing. It just gives you the canvas with the ability to do that. But it doesn't require the same permissions that's required in order to create a database view. In order to get to database, you have to be an admin. So, this does not require you to be an admin to get to the CMDB query builder. And I believe that I actually showed those in a earlier slide, the permissions that are actually needed to get to that. But in theory, yes, high level, it is basically giving you the ability to create that database view directly inside of a canvas. So Ratika or even Adam, if you want to speak to that a little bit more, and you're more than welcome. Anything?
Yeah, I think this is made to hide some of the complexities of the CMDB schema for the user. So you don't necessarily need to know how the CMDB schema is laid out behind the scenes. Whereas if you were to construct a database view, you have to know exactly which columns, which tables, what references, what, and all of those details, right? So a lot of those details are hidden from you through this UI. So all you need to do is whatever is the structure of query in your head, you drag and drop, you set some properties, and it does that heavy lifting for you.
Right. Great point. And unless you knew the joins and all of that stuff and the tables and all that stuff required to build the database view out, this really gives you, it takes all of that complexity out. Like Ratika said, that's a great point. So,
and the other thing to add is performance. The way this is, database views are all done real time, which if you're looking at millions of records can be a bit painful. Or performance wise, but here we can schedule the job, right? We can have it run once a day, once an hour. And I'm looking at millions of records and I'm traversing through multiple relationships of depth. It's something I need the right answer. It doesn't change very often. And the results from half an hour ago are perfectly valid now. And I can put them on a dashboard, get them in seconds rather than having a dashboard coming up and waiting for a few minutes. Right? Similar to how we do things with like CMDB Health, where we're able to process stuff, get the results. You could do it with some database views, but you're just, the design experience is so much easier, so much nicer, so much more modifiable. The permissions are better, all those things, and performance, it all goes better. That if I'm querying CMDB, I want to use Query Builder. Before Query Builder, we had to do it with database views, and we built Query Builder because that was hard. Right, we addressed a lot of the main issues we had with doing it with database views. I'm pretty sure most of what we do with Query Builder, most, not all, you could have done with a database view, particularly in the first versions, but I think it continues to get better and better and make it easier to do more powerful things without having to do, without having to work with the fun of database views.
Right, great point, Adam. And I think the other thing to understand too is that this doesn't necessarily become a replacement for database views, because everything that you could potentially do with a database view doesn't necessarily mean that you can do the same thing inside the CMDB. I think the biggest thing is configuration management, knowing what's available inside of there determines really what you can, build a query out to. But great points, Adam and Ratika both. So thank you for that. So again, I think a couple quick takeaways. We're not done. I have some more to show you, but I think just the idea of the way that the new platform Workspace's analytics workspace works, how really, in my mind, the few less clicks that you have to do to utilize a report source is pretty amazing to me. I know that when we did this a couple years ago, we were able to use that same report source, but we used it inside of the indicator source and then attached an indicator to it and did all of those steps. So it was still available before. I just like the less steps that you have to do here. doesn't require an indicator source. I mean, you can find the report source directly here, which makes it, pretty amazing to me. So with that, let's do another one. Let's see what we have next here. So now I want to look at application services that have a business criticality of 1, which is most critical. So again, I'm going right back into the CMDB query builder, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. And again, you can name this whatever you choose. I'm going to name mine all critical application services, and actually played around with these names a little bit as we go further. But here I'm going to search for application service. And I'm going to take that and I'm just going to pull that out. Now, in the case of what I'm doing here, there's only one class that I need for what I'm trying to do. Another great thing about it is you can apply filters directly to the class right here. So I clicked on the funnel and I'm looking for business criticality, and it's 1, and I have that selected. And then I'm just going to add a couple columns. I want to see the business criticality to know that it is a 1. And then also I'm curious about who owns it. That way, if there's not an owner on it and it does have a criticality of 1, I should probably look at that. So here, very simple, and I'm going to go ahead and run this one as well. And then I'll be able to get the results directly. And if I stop this, because I would do kind of move fast. So here, what's cool is now I've been able to find application services that are critical, and I can see that I have 4 of those that don't even have an owner. That's probably not a really good idea. Now, this is demo data. I know that none of you would ever have an application service that didn't have an owner, so you don't have to worry about that. But here I have 4 of them, and that's something that probably should be fixed. Another thing to think about is that application service and business service really tie closely together, and there's a relationship that can be created between the 2 of them. There is a script or a job that actually can be ran that can basically say, I want to look at all of my business services that I have out there, and I want to create application services off of that. So again, if you don't have a whole lot of application services, but they're tied closely to your business services, there is a process where you can actually just basically mirror the business services that you have. But in this case, this is something that, I don't know, maybe there's value to it for some of you that are on the call. Maybe it's something that you've thought about. But it's just another way real quickly of showing the ability to drag a class out and also apply now some filters to it and get the data that I'm looking for. And again, we can do the same thing with this. We can create a schedule, obviously name it whatever you want again. And remember, if you make any changes to that, you'll need to create a new schedule. Again, I'm only doing on demand for the purposes of the demo. You can make whatever, you run it however often that you want. And then I can go back into it, and then I can actually create a report off of it, which I do again. This is, it's very repetitive at this point. And then once I do all of that, then I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm actually going to pull it over into my dashboard. And again, the name pulls over. Again, I'm going to do, just leave it like that. And there's that information. And I actually left it as a list this time. And again, when I go over to Platform Analytics Workspace and I go back to my dashboard, I can add, which is already over, I can add this one as well. I did have to change some names here, but none of the content changed. And I'm going to add that element, that same data visualization. And I'm going to go and look for my report source. Once it loads here, I'll go ahead and give it a name, Critical Application Services. And then I'll find my data source. And I did actually change my data source here. It is the same one, but the name may look different than the previous. And once I find it, then I can drag, or I can click on it, and now it's added as well. So very simple way of adding now 2 data visualizations to my inline dashboard of content that I created from inside of the CMDB query builder. Save it, we'll exit, and then again, I can click directly into that information and access it so I can actually see that. So real quickly, what I'd like to do, let me look at the time here, or let me see, are there any questions that we need to answer? Do we need, particularly you're seeing the questions, is there any that you think we should answer out loud here?
Yeah, I'm going through them.
Okay. Well, let's
Uh,
just kind of just start here and we'll see what we can do. So can anyone with the idle role can access the schedule?
So we have a role specific to this, which is the CMDB query builder role. I can verify and see if ITIL users automatically get that role or not, and I can get back to you on
I
that.
believe that if we look at this, so right here, so the role required is the to create it would be CMDB query builder, and also you want the report user because they're going to have the ability to look at reports. So as long as you have the CMDB query builder, you can create a schedule.
And I think one of the goals with ITIL, ITIL gives me a lot of heartburn because it's a pretty big hammer. I think what you'll see with most of what we have, including this with report user and the query builder user, that the groups that have this, we want to put you in control. Do you want to have all your ITIL users be able to do this? Then just have ITIL inherit it. You can add that in, but we don't want to force you to give access to everybody to do everything. Right. So I think you'll see a lot of cases where you may want to add in the role up to you, up to you and your organization, or you can have a group that has just this or add this into your group or however you want to handle it. But I want to make sure you have the full control, which means that some of the functionality we talk about in these academy sessions, whether it's creating function fields in the report designer or it's doing this, they don't all come by default for all ITIL users. So it's something to be aware of, and I want you to make the choice what you want your users to be able to do. I don't want to open everything to everybody just because I think it's good. I want to make sure you have that control, and it's safer for you to add in inheritance for roles than for you to remove them.
Correct. Thank you, Adam. So I think what I want to do real quickly, because we did have a question that came in. And Ratika's actually typing it, but I think that I'll just demonstrate it. So I think what we'll do is when we look at the same critical services that I did, a question came in and said, can you look at incident, problem, change, whatever? Can you attach that information to it? You absolutely can. And I think that let's just do that here. So one thing that I want to do is here, I was looking for business criticality of 1. I'm just going to go ahead and remove that. That way I can get all of them. But let's see if we have any incidents that are tied to an application service. So incident's going to be under the non-CMDB tables. So I'll just search here for incident. And it'll take its time. There we go. So let's find incident. And I'm going to drag that out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a connection between the two of them. And for this, I basically want, I'm going to click here on the actual connection, and I'm going to do it by configuration item. And if there's any incidents, then I should be able to, and I want to convert attached nodes to patterns. So I want to make sure that if whatever patterns that there are, let's make sure that we catch all of them, because there's CIs that are connected directly to an application server, and that same CI may be connected to an incident. So we want to make sure that we get that same connection there. So if I run this, let's see if we can actually see if there's some incidents that are related to the particular application services. So yes, not many, but what we have found is there's 2 application services and their business criticality is 3, but there are 2 incidents that are related to them. Let's take it a step further. Let's see if there's actually any change requests that are related to them as well. So now I'm going to drag that out as well, and I'm going to go ahead and hook that up to my application service as well. And it's basically saying, okay, for every application services, is there an incident and a change request? And again, we want to look at all of those, and we'll look at configuration item again, And let's run it again and see what we get. Hopefully there is a change request that is associated with one as well as an incident. And our results are coming in. We do. So here we can see that these particular application services not only have an incident, and there's some repetitiveness here, that not only have an incident that are associated to them, but they also have a change that is associated to them. And these change request numbers, some of them, there's only a couple of these that actually repeat. So, well, all of them are in there twice. Now, the other thing that you can do is you could change your and statement to an or. Is there an application service that has an incident or change request rather than both? Let's run that and see what happens. So here we go. So now we can see some application services that some of them have an incident but don't have a change request, and some of them just have change requests. So again, really good information that if you were trying to do that, maybe directly in a report or directly inside of an indicator, may be tough for you to actually do that. But the CMDB Query Builder gives you the ability to do that on the fly. I mean, just dragging and dropping. So again, I think that just the simplicity of it is really invaluable. So I think someone asked that question, can you attach those? And here you can see that we have done that, where we've looked at both an incident and a change request, or an incident or a change request. And that it could be the same thing for problem or request or anything like that. If there is a relationship, an association somewhere, then CMDB Query Builder gives you the ability to look at that. So let's see. Before I get to takeaways, and I don't know, are we looking at questions? Ritika, you're answering one. And feel free, you can answer those out loud if you think that there's more value for everyone. Let's see here. How is it? We already did that one. Do we need to repoint the data source of a data visualization as when we update the query? I remember from my old memory that this was one of the limitations. Is this still a limitation or not anymore? Well, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier. So if you change anything within the report source, within the query, and you're utilizing it as a report source, then yes, you will have to update that information. And Ritika, maybe you can help me with that, because I think that question kind of goes a little bit further here. So I think it's basically talking about at the data visualization level. So if you have a query that you've created and you've decided to use that as a report source, you create the schedule and now the report source is there. If you change that query and you create a new schedule report, but you use the same name, will the data visualization itself automatically update? I think I know the answer to that, because I think there's some sysids that are created with each one of those schedules that are created. But am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, I think my understanding is that when you update a query, then essentially the next time that query will run based on the schedule, right? That's when you'll see the changes in your report as well. And if your report is relying on certain columns which you had earlier, which you don't have right now or whatever, then obviously it'll impact that report, right?
Right.
But other than that, I think it should work. Like you.
Yeah, this was a limitation before because we created the new, the report had to reference the latest run, right? The table it's created contains all the old runs or some of the old runs of data. But I believe we have a function that does that gives you the latest run. Okay. And I thought that what happens is if you add a new field, we'll add a new field. But as Ritika said, that if you remove a field, then we have a problem. But if
Yeah.
you're adding new fields, it'll be fine. And I think this is where we come into, I know one of the sessions we did before where you can add labels, so you can relabel stuff to come through. But if you're adding new fields, you're fine. If you're changing the data, but the fields stay the same, I believe you're fine. But that was an issue before. That was an issue several releases ago in the first couple of versions, that you had the report had to name the run. And now I'm pretty sure there's a dynamic function which just says, give me the latest data that it will. Okay. But you need to make sure that your report does have that call.
Okay, so then if I'm understanding correctly, because I think that I may have misspoke earlier in the presentation, then you're saying if you create your query and you schedule that, or you create that schedule for that, if you go back into the query and do something, that the schedule would automatically pick that up?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying now?
Whenever the next time it runs, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's worthwhile checking, right, to go through, because I think there can be some things that if you dramatically changed it, I don't exactly know what's going to do to your report if you remove the tables and change them. But I believe it's adding new fields to it. So most changes I think are fine, but you definitely do want to take a look at it and go check your reports and make sure, run it, make sure everything looks good.
I'm just going to try it here real quick, just so we'll actually. Okay, so server.
So if we try just changing, well, we can add a column, or we could change the relationship. I think those things should all be supported. If you remove server 1 and you put in something else, then I don't exactly know what you're going to get. But also it should break at that point in time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. So manufacturer's there. Let's add a column for database here and see what we can get. Let's just do, I don't know. Let's do managed by. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. We save that and we run it. I know that it would give us the column here. I'm just curious, once we probably picked a column that it didn't like, maybe.
And going back, this is one of the reasons why we don't use the database used for everything, because it's one thing if it takes 30 seconds in a job where I'm not waiting for it. It's very different if I was waiting for the dashboard to come up and it needed to run this query 3 times.
Yeah. My session may have timed out as well, but I think that's a good question. I think that what I'll do for the purposes of this is I will actually, I'll create that. I'll try to create that and try to break it or make it work or whatnot. And then I will put that inside of the community blog to kind of let everybody know the way that it works. So I know that we have some questions, and Ritika is working on that. So the other one, the data source, I'll put something inside of the community event that'll actually let you know whether or not that that works, Kavya. So a couple things, and then we have some time. We may have some time unless we have more questions. So I think the takeaway from this, there's a couple takeaways. So one, it gives the ability to create, dynamic queries for reporting and performance analytics, platform analytics. It is an alternative to database views, although they're not the same, and although there are differences. If you're someone that doesn't have that access, but you know what you're trying to do, CMDB Query Builder can do that for you. And again, you would not have to have admin in order to create this. And since you can you can generate a report source off of it, which I think is always great, is it gives you the ability to apply some governance. Like if this is a report source that is tried and true, this is the way that everybody wants things to be, then this is information that you can give out, and know that when you do make changes to it, that it's all one sort of source, which is really what's great about report sources, no matter where you use them, is the ability to really put a lot of governance through the report source itself. So there are some links that are out there. There's a lot of information inside of the doc site as it relates to CMDB. And then of course, building things out, creating things, the way that it works with platform analytics, the way they're, and again, I've referenced the two academy sessions that we did for Tokyo when we talked about platform analytics and the data visualizations and things you can do there. But there, like I said, there's just a slew of information that's inside of the docs around all of the things that you can do with CMDB. Again, we didn't show the service mapping query. I think that that's going to be another academy session that I'm going to create, where we'll do just that type of query to see what we can do with that as well. But if that's something that you are interested in, just know that you can go to the docs and there's great information about service mapping queries as well. So let's see what this question, Ratika. Could these potentially cause timeouts if the pool is large, similar to PA behavior? I think that that's probably a question that's worth saying out loud because it's probably something that everybody's curious. So Ratika, whatever you were getting ready to type the answer, if you want to share that, and I'm sure that Adam always has something to say about long running things. So we'll see if he has something as well. But Ratika, what were you getting ready to type?
Yeah, I was going to say that, like I had mentioned earlier, there are limits under the hood in the CMDB query builder. So how many results are spit out for a query. We also do like some batching under the hood. So there are some like safety knobs in the implementation. But that being said, if your database is very big, if there is any table which has really huge amount of data that is getting churned through, if you set up very complex filters, depending on how the indexes are playing out, you could definitely run into queries which are long running, right? So that's always the case.
Yeah, and so I think that's. I'm sorry, I'm with.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, it's possible that's going to be there, but what's worse is trying to do it live. What's worse is trying to put this on a dashboard with a database view and it taking 5 minutes to come up. 5 minutes loading a dashboard is beyond an eternity, but 5 minutes in a batch job is nothing, right? And that's how this is scheduled, and we're optimizing those things to make it better. And I believe there's some limits in the designer that when you run it when you press run or when you press view results, there'll be a limit real-time limit, but then in the batch job there's not a limit. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure we used to have that at least.
I know.
Let's see if it comes up.
Properties.
There is a limit. The 10,000 limit that we have out of box on the maximum number of results. And I had pasted the property in one of the answers, so I think it's called.
Yeah, I'll put this link as well. But here is the information that you were speaking to directly. So the number of results for scheduled query in the results section, the query when load all results is 10,000. And
I believe that's
changed, probably not.
No, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it. Right. So that's one where it's when you're viewing it in Query Builder. I believe this is only when you're in Query Builder as opposed to being the actual results, because again, we don't want to wait for it. When we're building it, we want to get results, go, yeah, these look right, we're good to go, as opposed to getting the full thing. So you have all the knobs to adjust. Again, this is there so that we can get the data, so that when we're running our reports and reviewing on our dashboard and getting the counts of some of these things and the number of incidents related to them, that we get results very quickly. So I mean, there's the simplicity factor, but the performance factor shouldn't be underappreciated, that this is going to help your user experience's performance. Very similar to PA, having the data collector do the data collection so that when I view it, it's fast. Similar concept.
Yep.
And if you, we have the knobs, I would say do what you need to do. And if we're running into issues and your job takes 6 hours, well, then let's put a case in. We'll take a look at it. We'll see how to optimize it. There are knobs to make it faster. It's not a one size fits all for everything. But you're going to have if performance is an issue, you definitely want to be in Query Builder, just like we do want to be in performance analytics compared to trying to do it real time. And the design of your CMDB was going to have a big impact too. Do I have to go through 17 relationships, or is there something that would be more optimized? Those types of questions will be good too.
Yep. Ratika, I see you answering one, but again, I think this is probably a good choice for something out loud. So can you just speak to quickly the types of tables or whatnot that you can expect to see in the non-CMDB?
Yeah, the list of tables that you see in non-CMDB tables panel is any table which has at least one attribute which is referencing CMDB CI or a child table. So because the idea behind Query Builder is that you're creating a query where you're saying, okay, give me data where it is connected to CIs with certain conditions, right? So only tables which have at least one attribute which references CI is the list of tables that shows in, under that. And if you're looking for reverse, so for example, somebody mentioned location. So CI has a reference to location and not vice versa. So you could set up conditions on location by using the related fields, because that will show up on the filter for CI itself, right? That's the dot walking that happens. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and I think what you're referencing to is just like anything else. Yeah, that thing, I don't know what happened there. When you drag out the incident, let's say that we're dragging incident to something, then like we did before, when you click on the funnel, if there's a related list or whatnot, or that actually works with that, you'll see that same thing inside of the filtering inside of the CMDB as well. So that is, again, basically what Ratika was saying, is another way that you may be able to find the information that you're looking for. Can we join two queries built from the CMDB query builder? So I know earlier that we talked about a combination of using both the CMDB query and also a service mapping query. But Ratika, do you have the ability to bring two CMDB queries together, or would you just try to bring those all out as classes inside of one CMDB query and join all those up the way that you would need them? Like, I'm trying to figure out what would be the reasoning sort of to have two of them come together.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the use case here when we're talking about joining two queries. I think every query is separate. I'm not sure if there's any, I don't think we have any mechanism to combine.
Well, it would be you just have a more complex query, right?
Yeah.
If you were saying, I want to know I want to know all of these that aren't one of these, or all, all my database servers that also are supporting my email system or something, right? I mean, you can add more nodes and you can have a more complex query. I think that would handle a lot of use cases, although I don't know if it'd handle all of them.
Right. Yeah. That's
and when you get done, I am not suggesting this, but if I had to do it, these do create tables in the database, right? The results are tables. You could then put a database view on top of those.
You getting fancy.
I'm not saying it's just doing it, but depending on the use case, that might be something you'd end up doing, where you then would be able to join the two things together. And we have all the power of reporting that comes through, and we still have dynamic filter conditions. So because it becomes one table to query, it makes it easier to use in other things that come out of on it. But it's got to be really use case specific. And I would probably look to, can I answer it with a little bit more complicated query and query builder? I would go that path, but you do have a lot of options. I'm also going to note, since we're in here, I said it. So query builder results are tables. And some of us might ask about custom tables. And just to be clear, the tables that are created by query builder are explicitly exempted and they're not considered custom tables, even though it is creating, we are creating tables every time we run the query, every time we create a new query. But those are not, those do not come out of your custom table allotment or App Engine tables. They're exempted tables.
Okay, yeah, and somebody asked where to find them, and Ritika's going ahead and answering that as well. So
yeah, they all get the same prefix. So every new table that gets created, it's essentially U underscore CMDB underscore QB underscore result, and it has the society of the query for which it's the result. So
and it's one to one with the one with the query. So if you go browse the queries, you're seeing, you're effectively going to see the tables. And the idea is that you're not going to go look at those tables. The table name's pretty ugly.
Yes.
But they are there. They are there. And again, if you were going to do something fancy and you need to know what it is, you can certainly go in and rename the query table, relabel, not rename, but relabel. And the same thing with the label names. I know we've done that in the past where we went in and if you're going to use it a lot, you have the full power of the platform behind it. The results are a table.
So query builder tables, there are things out of box which take care of cleaning up these tables, clearing up old data, all of that. So there are there's scheduled jobs, the table cleaners, all of that to take care of maintaining these tables. So I don't believe there's any expectation from the user to do anything here.
So I know that the data is cleared out to go through that. Do the tables get dropped at some point in time, or can I drop the table, or the table, once I've run a query, is that table going to be on my instance forever, even if there's no data in it because it's been purged?
I can go check that. I know for sure that the old data from runs definitely gets cleared out. I believe we dropped the table as well at some point, but I don't remember the timeline for it. But I can check that and get back to you on that.
Yeah, and that I'm actually sure that's going to be in the documentation about what comes in. I think it's similar to import set tables. The conceptually how we manage them, they get cleaned out after a little bit of time, and if you don't use them for a longer period of time, they might be removed. But you would always just run it to recreate it. So it's not going to be a problem for you. The biggest issue that we could have would be the old data, but that definitely is handled and purged at the appropriate times. So I'll go with, you don't need to worry about it. There's some, if you want to, you could look into it about how it's done, but ostensibly you don't need to worry about it.
Okay, great. We have that one question sitting there. I've never actually thought about the CI relationships and assets. And you know if there's a connection there?
I do not know.
Yeah, I'll find that out, Cara, and
I can talk a little bit about that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, go for it.
So the relationships, the way they are modeled, they are always between two CIs. But assets have a reference back to a CI. Not all assets have a reference back to a CI, but assets, depending on the life cycle, do get reference back to CIs. And there is some methodology that we have. I think there are business rules, and depending on what applications you've installed, there are some synchronizations that happen between the asset and the CI. But I don't think change in an asset ever impacts the relationships that a CI has. Kurt, did that answer the question? I hope it answered, but
yeah, Kurt, did that answer? If you can give us a thumbs up, or if your question is more elaborate. Yep, that answered. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so we are close to the top of the hour. I'll go ahead and close things up. Really great conversation. Ratika, I really appreciate you being on and giving us deep dive information, and always, of course, Adam as well. And Tara, I know that you were able to answer some questions via type, so I appreciate that as well. CMDB query builder is one of those things that I think is probably underused, and we want to make sure that we can give as much information as we can to encourage people to use it more. And like I said, there's an extensive amount of docs pages that are out there that talk to many different aspects of the CMDB query builder. So, make sure that you go out there and look and utilize them as much as possible. And I think it's just a really great conversation today about some really good stuff. So hopefully this will encourage some of you to at least try it, try it out, see what you can do. And like I said, with how quick now that you can put these directly inside of inline dashboards, that to me is a really nice feature of the latest release, and being able to do that. So that's really nice as well. So with that, real quick, I'll go over some of the things that you already saw in the early announcements in the coming in video, but there is a new community that we have out there. This is a link to that. Make sure that you're going out. That information is changing a lot throughout the day and daily. So we're making some changes, some looks and things like that. So we're trying to make it better every single day for you. Again, this will be out here on the community page later on today, as well as on our YouTube page. So look for that information. Don't forget about the Performance Analytics Academy Pro Tips that we have out there. Here's the link for that. These are quick little short videos that we're doing now to kind of give you, some really great content, really small 3, 4, 5, 6 minute videos that give you some good information that you can use every day inside of the platform as it relates to platform analytics. So check those out. Of course, always make sure that you're checking out Now Learning, some really great content that's out there, and that changes a lot. New stuff is brought out all the time. PA Advanced is now an on-demand course. So if you haven't taken that, you want to go ahead and do that. You can do it on demand. Make sure that you're also checking out all the other great Academy sessions that are within platform analytics as a whole. These are other great ones that are out there, and they put on magnificent academies. So make sure that you check them out as well. And it looks like that we don't have any other questions, and I might be able to give you, look at that, 2 minutes back to your day. But again, as usual, thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you in a couple weeks where we're actually going to talk about, I wasn't able to put a slide together, but we're actually going to put we're going to have a session on the CIO CEO dashboard and what it can actually, how it can help the managing of your content inside of the platform. So look for that in 2 weeks. So thank you very much.